I think this might be like the best pins so far. Like, okay, I'm biased because I love Pulp Fiction more than life itself, but hi guys, Eva here. Welcome back to my channel. I'm finally wrapping up January, and I decided, and because I also promised this, that I was gonna do a bit more statistics every month. People usually like statistics. After struggling with my advanced statistics model from university, I honestly do not understand why. I freaking hate statistics. Like, I think they are the product of the devil. But I'm here to kind of make this most appealing as possible. So I'm gonna go through some statistics for the month of January, which is freaking amazing how much I have managed to read, considering how much I had to do. I think I've read more this month than I've read in a month in years. So I've ended up reading 15 things, and none of them were comics. And 9 were physical books and 6 were audiobooks, which definitely audiobooks helped. But even just 9 physical numbers is amazing for me. Like, I don't think I've read so many physical books at any time last year. I think the 2021 in regarding some books is starting so well. Just the physical books, so the 9 books amounted to a total of 3,216 pages. 9 books were by male authors and 7 were by female authors. The numbers do not add up because one book was written by a man and a woman together, and I decided to count them both. So that's why the numbers, if you add them, doesn't make 15. I had 10 books on my TBR and I managed to read 9 of those. And actually, the one that I didn't end up reading, it's okay because I can kind of push that forward to this month. You'll see in a second. Read 2 YA, 1 can be also considered middle grade, and I've read 13 adult books. In terms of years that came out, 2 books were written before the 1990s, 13 books that were written between 2000 and 2020. 1 book was in the range of 2 stars, 4 books were in the range of 3 stars, 6 books were in the range of 4 stars, and 2 books were in the range of 5 stars, which is amazing. Again, I don't do 5 stars. I don't give 5 stars kind of ever. So I've read 8 that can be considered in the genre of fantasy. Of those, 1 was a low fantasy, 1 was an urban fantasy, 1 was a comic fantasy. And if you want to know these categories, what I mean exactly, I'll link up here the video I've done on some genres of fantasy. And 5 were sci-fi, which I never read again. So it was a month full of surprises, but all good, mostly. And then I have read 2 horror books, 1 literary fiction, and 4 non-fiction. I'm gonna go in order of what I read, but if they belong to any of the TBRs, I'm gonna put Eva Sleep so you know where TBR they belong to. So the first book I finished in 2021 was The House on the Cerulean Sea. I listened to this on audiobook, on Scribd, which, by the way, it's not unlimited. So yeah, that was a big surprise. You can just get like around 4 books that are recently released, and then they're gonna just give you like just some unheard and very low rated that are produced by Scribd, I guess. So yeah, so I've read a lot of audiobooks in the first half of the month, and then I kind of reached my point where I couldn't listen to more. So no, Scribd is not unlimited. It's still good subscription, but it's not unlimited, FYI. This was a middle grade that reads like a YA, I'd say, and it's by TJ Klune, which is an author that I absolutely love. You might have heard me mention another series by him, the first book called The Lightning Struck Heart. I love this series, it's fantasy. And this was written in 2020. It's the story of this man who basically, he works kind of for social services in this alternative world where there are children that have some magic, but they are really frowned upon by other people. So all these children usually are abandoned by the parents and grow up in orphanages. So this man that we follow, our protagonist, he goes one day to this orphanage, and his role is to go there and see the children, analyze the situation, kind of spend some time with them to understand if the orphanage is doing well, if she should stay open or if she should close because of safety reasons. And when he goes there, he meets a bunch of amazing characters. It's just a hug. It is a hug of a book. And I absolutely loved this. It was, yes, predictable, but it's one of the cases where a book being predictable doesn't take anything away from it. The humor, the way these characters, which were not many children, I think around 5 or 6 children, so you get to know them a lot throughout the book. The relationship that forms, there's honestly nothing I would change about this book. And if anytime you're in a reading slump, or you feel like you want to read something that's just fluffy, awesome, and gives you a good laugh, there is no better choices than this. It doesn't read like a middle grade, like everybody could read this. It was diversity at its best. It was an amazing way to start the year, because I ended up giving this 5 stars. Then, from my TBR, the first one I read is the true crime one, and this comes as no surprise probably, because I predicted that I was gonna read the true crimes books kind of immediately, because I usually do. I really love the genre, and for this month I had chosen I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. So this is the story of how this author was obsessed with the Golden State Killer, which is this serial killer that terrorized California between the 70s, end of the 70s, and first 5 years of the 80s. And then he disappeared and no one ever caught him. When this author wrote this book, no one knew who he was. So there is an additional couple of chapters done by other writers after, in 2018, or I think it's 18, he was actually caught, and he's caught through DNA testing, through basically generational DNA testing. And I want to say that the author doesn't come close to who he was. So although I thought at the beginning, and that's what I said in my TBR, I believe, that she knew who he was, that's not true. She had no idea who this guy was, and she doesn't even come close. If the suspects that they have, they were not the right guy, but she is the one who kind of says DNA testing is what might get this guy in the end, and she was right on that, so praises for that, I guess. This scared the living shit out of me, and forensic stuff is my jam. I watch true crime, I do this in university and all of that, so I built my life on that, and this managed to scare the living shit out of me. There is no other way. I actually put up this for sale because I don't want this in my house. That's how disturbed I am. And I think the reason why is that every one of us, especially with someone, you know, when I hang out with a crowd of people that do forensic psychology or criminology, we all have kind of those things where we draw the line, where we say, okay, this is what I can take, this is what I cannot take. And for me, home invasions, as he did, is just something that I cannot. It's just the worst thing that can happen, in my opinion. That's why it probably disturbed me so much. So basically, a Golden State Killer committed a series of rapes and homicides. So he started by raping, and then he passed on to actually kill the victims. And he would get in the victims' homes at night. He would bind them up, and then he would rape them for hours, and then he would leave. And the more he progressed in his criminal career, the more bold he became. So at one point, he even started getting the house when there was a partner. So he would incapacitate the partner or bound the partner and then rape the woman, and then finally he would kill them both in the end. So the last 10 victims he actually killed, both men and women. So there is something that plays here on, I think, everybody's fear, because, you know, the most safe you feel in your house or when you have a partner around, and this guy is coming in your house when there is a partner and doing whatever he pleases and getting away with it for so many years. So this was freaking disturbing. I read this really quickly because I was disturbed. I wanted to be done. I wanted to put this down and try to sleep at night and forget that this shit ever happened. And her writing was a bit confusing at times. You can tell that she unfortunately passed away before finalizing the book. I think she'd have made some adjustments here and there, but it was definitely better written, all her part, than the last final 2 chapters. I got bored in the last final 2 chapters. There is also an adaptation on HBO, I think, of this book. I don't know, I mean, there is a part of me that wants to watch it, and the other part is like, okay, you just managed after a month to get over this book and sleep at night without being scared, and now you want to go and watch that. I don't know. I did a lot of research on my own after this, so that's why I know who this guy is. He was actually an ex-cop, and so yeah, this explains a lot of things. And there are so much more I can tell, and I could go into this, but I would not go into a book review. It would be more, you know, watching or describing or judging things on a forensic psychologist side. By any chance, if you want me to do a separate video, I can. But as a book in itself, I think it would probably deliver more as a documentary. However, if home invasions and this kind of crimes really disturbs you, I would say do not pick this up, because I didn't get away anything from this apart from frustration, anger, and fear. So although I'm grateful, I don't know how I feel about this. I gave this 4 stars because at the end of the day, it was well done. It was interesting, definitely a page turner. But it's one of the books that took away something from me instead of giving me something, if it makes sense. Then I decided to experience more sci-fi, and Scribd was great for this, well, at least until you let me listen to books. So I listened to All System Red. And this is basically the story of this murder robot, and there is assigned to this group of people that are on this planet for a mission to gather some samples or something, and then they have to deal with some rogue other murder robots, and there is a story there. I don't want to spoil anything. So this was really kind of famous, especially in the sci-fi community. Even me, that I'm not part of that, I've heard about this, and it was bloody funny. It was really funny. Again, it's a 3.5 hours probably audiobook, so I've listened that in very quickly, in probably 2 sessions, and I definitely see the appeal on these. The action scenes, because I'm not into sci-fi, I don't love, but it was okay. I didn't hate it by any means. Nothing on this book I hate, and I ended up giving these first installment 3.75 stars, and this is an adult target. I mean, there is definitely swearing and adult content on that side. Then I was clearly on a sci-fi kick, and so I proceeded to listen to the original by Brandon Sanderson, Mary Robinette. I don't know, I've written the name too little for me to read it. I'm dumb. Yeah, so this is also targeted for an adult audience, and is another sci-fi. It's a novella, and again, you follow this woman who wakes up after an accident you don't know at the beginning, and she finds out that something happened to her husband, and shit goes down after that. Everything I can tell you, because it's so short, can be a spoiler, so I don't want to. I really enjoyed the audiobook. I think if you want to listen to a good, with a lot of sound effects and just done very beautifully, originally is a very good choice for that. I also really like that it is a sci-fi, but we have a kind of mystery, kind of a thriller vibe, crime vibe throughout, which I really enjoyed. The ending kind of was debatable, but I did enjoy it. I think some people find it very frustrating to a point they didn't enjoy it. I found it frustrating, but also it's one kind of ending that I do like, and it makes me speculate, so I honestly enjoy that. And overall, apart from me getting distracted in a couple of points, the more action, I think, like action, especially in audiobook, I get distracted and just I tune off, think about other stuff, so then I have to tune back in. But apart from those things, it was highly entertaining, and again, it's probably around 3 hours long or something, and I gave this 4 stars. And then I have read this big boy. This is by Sarah J. Maas, and it's House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City. I think House of Earth and Blood is the title, Crescent City is the title of the series. I think it's going to be a trilogy. This is adult urban fantasy by Sarah J. Maas. Can we appreciate this? This is the story of Bryce. Bryce is half fae, half human, living the best life with her best friend, who's a werewolf, very powerful, respected werewolf, leader of a pack in the city. They're having the best life when, again, tragedy struck. And I did kind of said in the synopsis when I did my TBR more than I want to say here, because fairly enough, I've heard people saying, you know, everybody speaks about these and the synopsis at too much length, because what actually happens, and although it's written in here, so I'm not giving true spoilers. It actually happens more than 100 pages in, so I'm just gonna leave it there. Okay, let's start by saying that the first 100, 200 pages, I was a bit thrown out of this because of the information we get. Like every sentence is an information of the word, and I found it a bit overwhelming. And then the rest of the book happens, and I absolutely loved it. But before I get into what I loved about this, I want to say that one thing that actually bothered me and rubbed me the wrong way is that it looks like Sarah J. Maas was defending herself a lot and her own writing style in this. So she, for example, makes plenty of sentences, more than necessary, just to say, oh, you are an alpha hole, or I'm a strong independent woman, I don't need these men to do things for me. So basically, I think because she was criticized on her alpha males in the previous novels, now she's just putting out there and she's letting us know that this is not the case in this, that her protagonist is the alpha girl in this, and she does not need any men. And we just need to hear that once. We don't need to hear it more. And I honestly know for why she's doing it, and I think it's a bit sad that she felt the need to do so, and that people criticize her to the point that she felt like, oh, I need to put it out there every 50 pages. I need to say a sentence just to demonstrate to people that I've changed. It's just really sad. She had her own writing style. People can like it, people cannot like it, people are free to say why they don't like it, but the fact that she felt so compelled to actually change it, and she doesn't manage to, because it comes through all the pages. Like, she has her own style and she's like trying to restrain herself, and at the same time it comes out anyway, because that's how she writes, and she should write however the fuck she wants to write. She's not, I don't know, I mean, I think people, and that's just my own critique in general, is that people criticize and are really mean all the time, and it gets very bothersome. And also people think, oh, if you write in a book that he's dominant or he's an alpha hole or whether or he's very alpha and possessive, then girls will think that that's okay, they should take the same relationship. And I want to say, give more credit to these women, give us more credit as women. We can read about a freaking fae or angel who's alpha male and who's very possessive and jealous and all of that, and we know that we're not gonna go out and find a freaking angel who's gonna bump his fist against his chest and say, look at me, I'm the most gorgeous thing, you are mine, no one can ever look at you ever again. We know it's not gonna happen. You're not gonna go out, girl, and find an angel or an alpha or a fae or anybody else. Every freaking people in this book is freaking gorgeous. Walk out in the street, look around you. Do they look like characters in these books? No, they don't. As someone can read Game of Thrones and not think that fucking your sister or brother is okay, so we can read a book like with an alpha guy in it and not think that that's what we should look for in a partner. Give us more credit. We are not so fucking dumb. I hope so. And if we are, then it's not gonna be the book's fault. No, it's, you know, look around you, look at society or television or social media. That's the problem. It's not a freaking book. Considering how little people read these days, it's not the problem of a book. They also should be able to write the books the style and the way she wants to, and you're free to pick them up or not. Apart from that, this was brilliant. After you go through the 200 pages of info dump, then it picks up. And this is one of the highest stakes books I've read in a while, meaning that it's twist after twist, they raise the stakes and raise the stakes, and then you're glued to the pages. The action, you know, when you get to the crescendo and then you get to the big part and then it slows down for the end. This is 300 of high stakes action where our protagonist becomes the most badass character, female character ever. Like, she has become one, apart from the comments about how she's strong and independent, she showed me she is. So that's why I said, you don't need to tell me, you don't need to put sentences or her bumping her fist against her chest. We know, because you showed us. She is, I was speechless. Like, this felt like all the action you put in a whole trilogy, perhaps, not in a single book. So I don't honestly know where she's going with this next. I'm here for the ride. This is a 5 stars because although I can see those flaws, and I did not love everything, actual plot, the twists were freaking brilliant in my opinion. I absolutely loved it. I couldn't put this down, and it's huge. Also, the romance is a nice side dish, definitely a nice side dish, and I think it wouldn't be like, I think she has found the perfect mixture of romance and action. Yes, though, I could have done without the sex scenes. I think she doesn't write very well sex scenes, they're really cringy. Sometimes the best sex scenes are written with less words, less descriptions, and I guess, yeah, it becomes a bit cringy. But apart from that, it's still 5 stars. When you get a book with flaws and you discard everything else because of what she does with the plot and the main character, I'm in awe. Like, it's freaking admirable. Then I have read the second book in the Murderbot saga by Martha Wells. This is Artificial Condition, and I enjoyed this even more than this first one, and I believe the reason is because there is kind of this spaceship that becomes kind of friend with our protagonist, and I really love the friendship, and I will definitely be continuing on with this. I don't have much to say. It's just a short novella that just, it's really funny and entertaining, and I listened to this really quickly. Then I have read The Humans by Matt Haig. This was my TBR jar pick for the month, and this is also sci-fi, and it's for adults, I'd say, but it can also be considered like everybody could read this, not children, but not because it's a bit complicated for children, probably all the science in it, but definitely could be for YA as well. However, I targeted this as an adult book, and this is about this alien who was sent to Earth to cancel any trace of the work of this human who found like this kind of really complicated mathematical equation solution, something of the sort, where basically the alien are trying to prevent humans to find out about this mathematical thing and becoming too much advanced. I guess that's my take from it. And in order to do so, the alien takes the body of this professor who found this formula. And I'm not gonna say anything else. This is freaking hilarious. As you can tell, I loved the writing of this. It was brilliant and funny. It was, you know, a perfect combination. It's not generally my kind of story. Like, I think it was really funny the first half, where it was, you know, just looking at human race and judging human race very badly. I love that part. The second part is more focused on relationships, which is just a bit less of my taste, but overall all the messages in here, and it was just heartwarming and refreshing, and definitely a unique story. Then I listened to Pines by Blake Crouch. This was the last book I was allowed on Scribd, and I've heard mixed things about Blake Crouch, so I wanted to try this. And this is again for adults, and I don't know, I'd say this is another sci-fi. I categorize it as a sci-fi, could be definitely considered a thriller crime as well. And this is the story of this man who wakes up after a car accident, and he doesn't remember who he is, where he is, or what was he doing before coming to this town. And madness ensue, and I really enjoyed this. I was really surprised. So the first chunk of the story, it's very murder mystery, kind of finding out this huge secret about this city, and then things starts being revealed, and then it becomes very action packed, and then there is the end, which is again, we go back to having a lot of explanations of where we are, why we're there, and all of that. And it was very twisty, surprising. So though again, I get lost in the action part because of the pace, because of we got a lot of detection, and then we got the action, and then again we got the explanation, I was able to tune back in and enjoy these at different times, and very much. It was very entertaining, very interesting plot, and I definitely continue on, because I don't know where this is going. So I hope that it's gonna get in a different direction when I expect. In that case, I will still love that sequence, I guess. And I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. Then I read Monstrous Regiment by Terry Pratchett. Don't know which number it is. This is kind of a standalone, so the Discworld has sub-series. This is more a standalone. So although we have vibes from The Guard the City Guard series, it just does a very brief appearance, and for the most part is character we've never met before and we probably never meet again. The premise of this is that this girl, she joins the army dressed as a man to go and find her brother. And I absolutely love the trope because Mulan, I grew up with Mulan, so I was kind of expecting the same. I really like the idea behind this. It was funny at parts. I think the more I read his books, the more I struggle sometimes with the plot itself. I just don't care about the plot. And the humor does make up for it to a certain degree, especially when they're so big. So I ended up giving these 3.5 stars. Again, this is the Disco War series. We are talking about Terry Pratchett, so the quality is always there. The message is always there. I just personally don't click with the plot so much, although I love the idea. Then for my non-fiction, I have read Men Searching for Meaning. This is by Viktor E. Frankl, and again, it's a non-fiction, and this is half 100 pages where he recounts his experience in different Nazi camps, Auschwitz and another one. And in the last kind of 50 pages, he explained logotherapy, which is the kind of form of therapy that he went on and implemented, and kind of is not the father of, but he's definitely one of the most prominent names regarding logotherapy, at least in Austria at the time. And he explains what it is and why is he doing it. And I did not read this. First of all, I want to make a premise because I don't think, again, it's such a story that I don't think it's my place to read this. I would feel just wrong for me to read this. I was expecting different things. The description that he has of the camps is not very in-depth, and that it was absolutely harrowing. It was really hard to read. It definitely puts things in perspective, and it's the messages in here and what he does. And he was a psychiatrist, you know, and then he goes on and practice after he's been released. It's a very admirable human being. I've learned a lot about how important it is to have a meaning in life, and how he describes that people who survive the camps are usually people that had find meaning, and by finding meaning they could go on and live. And so that was really important message. And I think it also makes a message that meaning doesn't mean usefulness. So it doesn't mean that you have to be useful in life or that you have to serve a purpose. It means that you as a human being have a meaning. Can be knowledge, can be spending time with the family, can be reading all the books in the world, eating or having holidays or having a job you love. It can be, doesn't have to be a big thing, it does have to have a meaning for you. It was very short, small amount of pages, you have to unpack a lot. So if you're ready to do so, then you can take away more than he writes. You have to read between the lines, if it makes sense. Yeah, but if you're expecting just a recount of what happens in the camps, then this maybe is not for you. It's really short, it's not very well described. It's more focused on, again, on giving a message of meaning. Then for my DV memoir diary format I'm gonna do, I've read Playing Dead by Monique Faison-Ross. I am gonna put up next a video. I'm sorry I didn't put it in January, I was just too busy. Film Day is gonna go up next, where I kind of get into details about this. This is a memoir about this author. She was in a relationship, a domestic violence relationship, from when she was basically 17 or something of the sort, and then she divorces him. And that's when things starts going very wrong. At one point he starts stalking her, and the next step is then kidnapping her, raping her, and leaving her for dead after brutally attacking her in the woods. The author survives, she seeks help, and then nowadays, 30 years later, she's writing this book. I'm gonna keep this very short. This was a really hard read. It's very well detailed, but please check out my video on what I thought and what I think other people should take away from these. I think it's very important to have kind of a bit of more in-depth discussion about this, because there was a lot to unpack in here. Definitely though recommended if you're interested. Then I have read Confessions by Kanae Minato, and this is my Japanese horror TBR selection for this month. This is the story of his teacher on kind of half break from school. She addresses all her students by saying that her daughter, who everybody thought died in a tragic accident, was actually murdered by 2 pupils in the classroom. And then you follow the consequence of her saying this to the classroom, what happens to these guys who have been accused, and some of the other characters related to these kids that committed this atrocious act. And this was unexpected and weird. I liked the ending, however, I was not very interested apart from that. And I think it's called Confessions, and it's a very clever title because you follow multiple characters, and every time you're taken back and they give you their version of the story or what happened for them. And that's kind of format that I don't really love. I just discovered. So that's probably my fault why I didn't love this as much as I could have. It's just not my kind of jam. But I read it all. I was curious to know what happened, and I ended up giving this 3 stars. I think it's very far-fetched. Like, no way in hell this would ever happen. So for something that tries to be quite realistic, I found very unrealistic, I believe. I don't know, I had the pressure that she was trying to make things quite realistic while I couldn't justify in my mind that they were ever be realistic. And it wasn't very scary. It's definitely more like, what the hell, disturbing in the sense that they're talking about very dubious acts and things and people, but it wasn't scary at all. It's one of the books where I'm glad I read it, but I've never read it again. For my horror TBR, then I had picked up The Elementals by Malcolm McDowell. This is kind of a classic horror, and this is about this family that has a couple of houses in Alabama, kind of in a gulf, and they are like houses on the beach, and there is also a third house that's not owned by them, if I'm not mistaken, and it's been abandoned and half covered by sand. And they go there in summer, so this time they go there after the matriarch of the family died, and she goes there, and of course she's really interested in the abandoned house, as any 13 years old would. And yeah, it's a horror with a haunted house in it. It's definitely a different setting than what we are used to, like, because there is like this sunny beach in Alabama, and it's very different setting that I'd expect. I really like haunted houses stories, they really scare me. This, because of the setting, I didn't find it as scary, although it gets a bit disturbing in a couple of places for a couple of moments, very fleeting moments. It was more interesting the fucked up family dynamics, to be fair. I think I was more curious about the dynamics of his family. They're a really weird family, let me tell you. And I really enjoyed the writing. I think it was written in the 85 or something, so it was very progressive for the time. I ended up giving this 3.75 stars. I think it's probably considered a classic, but it's put in a very weird setting that I've not decided yet if it worked or not. But it was interesting enough, weird enough, with these people saying really weird things to each other, and just, yeah. Toward the end, it becomes more classic haunted house scenario, but definitely for 3/4, it was peculiar. I describe this as a peculiar horror, not really scary though. And I have listened to The Devil and Harper Lee on Scribd, produced by Scribd, I believe, so that's why I was able to listen to, and that's probably why I wasn't really having it. I mean, we didn't love this. This is a non-fiction where it basically tells the story of Harper Lee and the book that she never wrote about this guy who basically killed off 5 people of his family to claim the insurance money, and he got away with the 5 murders before the uncle of his latest victim just shoot him in the face during the funeral of his niece, and he actually was found not guilty. So he was probably one of the few who shot someone in the face in the middle of the day with plenty of witness and got away with murder, and that was really interesting. However, this is not the story necessarily of that. This is the story of Harper Lee, who went to investigate this to write another book after How to Kill a Mockingbird, and she never ended up writing the book. And it's just very weird. And although it taught me a couple of things I didn't know about Harper Lee, for example, I didn't know she was a friend of Truman Capote, and she had a lot to do with his Cold Blood book. So she went with him and she did a lot of the research, and I think she kind of even fell in love, or kind of was really attached with one of the 2 guys who was the culprit in Cold Blood. I read that book, I didn't love it, unfortunately, but I didn't know that Harper Lee had to do something with it. And I don't know, it was not my jam. I'm glad for what I've learned, but I'm way more interested in the crime aspect, which was not the main focus of these, and I found it a bit boring overall, but it was kind of short, so I didn't mind it too much. But I ended up giving this 2 stars. It's just not my jam. I didn't think it was done well, to be fair, as well. Like, it was going all over the places, and I just don't understand exactly why then Harper Lee never ended up writing this book. So it's all speculation with not much meat behind. And finally, I read Bear Town by Fredrik Backman. This was for my European TBR. With this, we touched Sweden, and this I consider YA as an audience. However, again, it's definitely something that an adult can read and enjoy. I think the reason why I'm saying this is a YA, I think because of the protagonists are all young adults or teenagers in this sense, actually 15, 17 years old. And I think it's also a story that teenagers would take a lot from. This is the story of this remote town where all the focus is on hockey. So this town doesn't have basically anything left, if not for their hockey team, which is doing very well nationally, or is got to the semi-finals and all of that. And you follow the hockey players and their families, and you know, the actually coaches and the managers and their family. And because it's a small town, everybody is kind of intertwined with each other. And then one day something really bad happens and the town has to take sides. I'm sorry, because in my TBR I kind of said what happened, and this doesn't happen until more than half of the book, almost, or half of the book. So I'm not gonna say here what happens, but oh god, this was weird. Like, I could not give a fuck about hockey. I don't think I've ever seen it. I probably maybe in a movie sometimes, but I don't even know the rules. I don't know how it's played. I just know it's on ice. That's all I knew before going in. And this is mainly focused on hockey. So there is literally, before the main thing happens, half of the book is just about us reading about getting to know these characters and getting to know about hockey. I was a bit thrown out at the beginning. However, their writing is something spectacular, like something I've never read, and now I know why people love Fredrik Backman so much. And I have to praise the translator as well, because it's a unique writing style, and is so it just keeps you so attached. I cried like a baby in this book multiple times. It made me feel what I was supposed to. Like, I was able to put myself in these characters' shoes enough to get all the right feelings at the right moments, I guess. It's also very important story. It gets very frustrating in some parts. Some parts are hard to read. Some resolutions, you know, I say, I want more, but I also respect what he does. So I ended up giving these 4.5 stars, just because it took me half of the book to start caring about hockey enough to understand what we was talking about. But quality wise, these are 5-star books, hands down. I had to take away those kind of bits just because I struggled through the first part, and at the end of this, my rating has to reflect what I enjoyed. It's a unique writing style, and I think it's something I categorize this as literary fiction because I would not know where to put this otherwise. And it's just, I'm so grateful I've read this. Let me know if you've read any of these, what you thought about them. I'll see you next time with probably my diary of domestic violence video, which was due in January. I suck, I know, I'm sorry. Take care, guys. Have a last look at these beauties here. And thank you again for watching. Take care. Ciao!